I want you to think about your favorite meal. What would it be? I've tasted lobster, but I get an allergic reaction. But if I could, I'd have lobster, salmon, baked potato, asparagus with hollandaise sauce on it, and creme brulee for dessert. Now, what would that be for you? Let's talk about it. So many of us, and increasingly so, see homeless people on the streets. They're often carrying their worldly possessions in bags or maybe a shopping cart. And many of us have, especially if you lived in a big city, seen people eating out of the garbage can. Now, I know that's a distressing thought, but what we're doing in relationships is the same thing. If you think about your favorite meal on a beautiful plate, beautifully presented, appetizing, you want to just dig in. But if somebody brought you that, rolled up a trash can with your entire meal tossed into it, handed you a fork and said, eat up, it wouldn't sound so satisfying, would it? It wouldn't be so appetizing, would it? And probably you wouldn't even eat it. Well, that's similar to what I want to talk to you today about, is when we grow up traumatized, or we get traumatized as adults, and we wind up in these toxic cycles of relationships where they can't be trusted. They don't know how to treat you. They lie to you. Some of us have been in abusive relationships where we've been hit, beaten, kicked, but something allowed us into that relationship. Now, I'm going to offer you some alternative perspectives on this, and understand that I'm coming to you as an individual who has been there, done that. So for me, it was a situation where I would see one or two things in that person that maybe satisfied some kind of missing thing from my childhood, or something that I missed along the way, something that I long for. Say as a child you have alcoholic parents and they're just not there for you, and you have to fend for yourself. They're not feeding you, they're not clothing you, they're not taking care of your needs emotionally or physically. And so you grow up with this deep desire, and you want someone who's going to meet those needs. We do not get to skip developmental levels, everybody. We don't. So if you skip a developmental level as you grow up, you're going to eventually have to go back to that and learn how to cope from that developmental perspective. What's going on when we fall for all of these toxic relationships is we're taking our favorite meal in a dumpster, in a trash can. But there was just one or two things that was on the plate that was tossed in that garbage can that we focus on. We get laser focused. It's almost like there's something in our brain that clicks. And just those one or two things that this individual, from your perspective, meets, is got you all in. You're totally sold out. And as time goes on, inevitably their true colors begin to come to the fore, but we're still laser focused on that one or two things that this individual is satisfying from some past trauma. We're not seeing all of the trash that our meal is dumped on top of, but we are just focusing on those one or two things that seem to soothe or meet, from our perspective, something that was missing as a result of trauma or negligence. Now, I know that was a really harsh way to bring this, but I had to come to terms with this myself, and that's what I saw. That I was so starved out on some level. Now, not on all levels, but on some level, I was so starved that I was willing to eat out of a dumpster in relationships. Totally threw myself in, neglected myself, my own needs on every level, and it was focused on them. And inevitably, all of the things that I had ignored, focusing on one or two things, would eventually slap me back to reality, because I would be in a situation where I was devastated emotionally. And when I was being abused, I was devastated physically. In almost all of those situations, it left me devastated financially. I was just devastated. And when I got in that desperate, devastated state was always the point at which I finally cut ties. We don't have to get in a devastated state to finally cut ties with toxic individuals. You need to think about, what did I miss coming along? What am I starving for in a man? Now, I've never shared this with anybody else. It's a minor thing, but I need to share this with you so that you can get a good, clear understanding of how this played out. So I had a boyfriend. Yeah, he drank, he smoked weed and everything. And he wasn't really all that on an intellectual tip, but he was funny and we enjoyed each other, right? Well, what was going on when I was married is my husband wasn't all in, public displays of affection. He wasn't huggy, cuddly. I was just used to getting pushed away on all levels. So after I divorced him and I was in a relationship with this gentleman, we'll call him Joe, okay? In a relationship with Joe, I didn't pay attention to how often he got drunk. I didn't pay attention to how much he was smoking weed. I didn't pay attention to how much below what I was used to on an intellectual conversation tip that he was. But one day, he was getting ready to leave. He would come spend the weekend, and then he would go back, during the week. And he was getting dressed. He was getting ready to step out, and he was putting on his watch. Now, the way it would normally play for me is that I would get pushed away. No, baby, not right now. I got to get ready. But this guy, he had his arm around my shoulders. And instead of pushing me away, he just went ahead with his arm still around my shoulders. He went ahead and put his watch on. Now that imprinted something on my brain, because that was something I was starving for. Somebody that wasn't going to constantly push me away. Somebody for whom a minor task like putting on a watch was not enough for him not to keep his arm around my shoulder and keep me pulled close to him. Now that was something I was starving for, but I held on to that. And I was in that relationship way too dadgum long. Okay, that's a minor way for me to show you that. It could be anything with you. It could be somebody that it's just one or two things, whatever that is for you, that keep you there because you've been starving. And so even though that relationship is a dumpster fire, you stay in it because there were one or two minor things that you were starving for. It's what we do when we've been traumatized. It's what we do. We settle for less. We tend to razor focus on certain things that imprinted our brains as a result of past trauma. And it doesn't have to just be childhood trauma or neglect. Any kind of trauma that you go through. So I just want to challenge you to look, let me get this said. So what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to ask you to do without going through a thing or putting yourself through that whatever the breakup was, it was all your fault. If you wouldn't have this, that, or the other, they would have that. Why did they reject? No, we can't go through this exercise like this. This exercise needs to be objectively focused on what it is in past relationships that you did not like, and make a list. Stuff you didn't like. When we look back, we see a million different signs that we totally ignored while that reality was slapping us in the face. So just go back. What was it in those relationships, whether it was a character flaw or a bad habit or whatever they did not fulfill for you as far as your personal values, as far as how you want to be treated? Go back over all your past relationships, and as things come to mind, write them down on a list. Once you do that, those things, if you see them going forward, do not settle. Okay? Do not settle. Don't eat out the dumpster. Okay? Then I want you to, and look, this is the deal. I'm not much for all of this 1, 2, 3, 4 and your free thing, because that ain't how things work, okay? This is the deal. You're going to do that. Concurrent with that, you're going to write a list of all of the things in past relationships. Now, I'm not asking you to draw a list of your knight in shining armor that you want to come rescue you, just in past relationships. What are the good things? Because even though somebody's a knucklehead, because they're human, there's some good in them. Okay? So even if it's those things that you were laser focused on to the exclusion of reality, write it down. What things do you want in a relationship? Think about what kind of character do you... No, I'm sorry. Based only on the good things you've experienced in past relationships, you're going to write down, what did you like? What did you enjoy? What did you feel was worthwhile? Whether it's their character or the way they talk, whatever it is, you're going to make a separate list. Now, the reason why I don't do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 type of stuff very often is because when you do these lists, it's not going to be a one and done. You're not going to sit down today and write a whole list, and that's going to be the comprehensive list. What's going to happen is you're going to get started on both of those lists. Okay, and as you move through life and you go through life, and over time you think of something, go write it down on the appropriate list. Okay? Then what I want you to do is remember the good and remember the bad. And when you get into another relationship where you find yourself, you know this now, so you're going to be able to catch yourself doing this. And when you see a relationship where for every ounce of pleasure, there's a pound of pain, you need to cut and run and cut your losses. See, this is all about cutting your losses before you put your heart into a relationship. Because once you put your heart into a relationship, the pulling away is going to be tougher and tougher. Now, I've got, which thing is that? I think it's the dating book. I'll give you a link to a little ebook that you can download that's going to tell you what to look for. I mean, and you can see some of these things on a first date. I guarantee you will see most of these things within 3 to 6 months. And when you hear or see these things, you need to run, not walk, run. Don't get caught up in dumpster dive mode in your mind. Dumpster dive relationships are not working for us in 2022 or going forward, okay? And when you see certain things, they telling you something. They're telling you something about that person's character. And remember this, anybody can hold their own and pretend for a certain amount of time. But that pretense, it's going to begin to crack like cracked glass and fall down all around them and expose their true characters. So I'll put a link to that ebook here, and when you read that, that's going to tell you how to conduct yourself on a date. Don't talk too much, okay? Don't be telling them your whole story. Don't tell them about how Joe Blow did you wrong and how I ain't never this and I ain't never that. You got to hold your cards close to the vest. Don't tell people how to manipulate you. Because if a guy is out there just for one thing or really doesn't care about you and think he can play you, if he's a narcissist, trust me, you do not want to give him his doggone playbook. Okay? Anyway, that's it for today. I'm not gonna hold you any longer. I just wanted to share that with you. And if you have any questions or comments, put them down below. And if you like the content here, please subscribe and maybe like the video. Talk to me. Let's go back and forth here in the comments. And if you know of anybody who could use this information, please share it. The more the merrier. Anyway, I'm Dr. Linda F. Williams, and always remember that your greatest power is realized in the truth of who you are. Know that truth.